You're ready to not be living in an apartment. Why is that important to you?
We have a huge Friendsgiving, usually around Thanksgiving or the holidays, because I don't always get to go home. I picture me and my friends in the kitchen cooking and baking together and having the space to do that where we don't feel like we're on top of each other. It's really to have the space to be able to do things with my friends and the people that I have over and family.
But this is my house, Mommy. So what I asked Mr. Kringle for, it is, I know it is.
Welcome to The Pursuit of Home, coming to you from New York City. This is real people buying real estate and their unique journey to get there. We share the tips, tricks, and frameworks to help you navigate the bumps in the road that you won't see on reality TV or social media, and which no one has talked about until now. These are the emotional, psychological, ethical, and even spiritual challenges you're more than likely to encounter yourself. Learn from experts who've been there and hang out with me, Scott Harris, your host, who's helped thousands of people buy homes in Manhattan over the last 2 decades.
Welcome to The Pursuit of Home, where we explore what it really means to find and create a place to call home. Today, we're diving into the world of home buying with a home buyer herself, Ashley Glover. By day, Ashley is a senior learning experience support professional at a big beauty brand with a background in human resources, and she's busy building strategic relationships. And there's the professional side of you, and then there's the home buyer inside of you. And I'm talking to you, listener out there. And so, I'm bringing a big heart to this conversation. We don't always get to speak directly with home buyers, but today we are. So I want to dive right in. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott. Happy to be here.
Ashley, buying your own home is such an exciting, but often emotionally jam-packed journey. Can you share what the process has been like for you so far?
Yeah, it's been terrifying, honestly. You think growing up as a kid, like this magical experience where you like buy the house and you get the keys and you like go through this whole process, and like looking at the world now and the way that it is with the current economy and just looking at what they would say is in your price range compared to like what you think it is going to look like, is really discouraging, honestly, of just thinking I'm going to have to compromise on a lot of things or it not be what I thought it was going to be like.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to ask a question, and there's no right answer to this, but as we move along, are you open to have a little coaching as we go?
Of course.
Okay, great. Because I just I may have an idea here or there to help reframe the process, because it can absolutely be scary. And depending on the things that you're thinking about as roadblocks or things that are unexpected, maybe there's a way to move those a little bit further down the path, and then suddenly they just crumble and aren't the same kind of obstacles. But the question I have now, again, just to set the table for everyone, what's been the most surprising or unexpected part of your experience as a home shopper so far?
I think the most surprising thing is that you actually need a realtor. And I know that sounds like super simple, but there are a lot of things that you don't take into account when you're thinking of buying a house. Because in most cases, you're thinking like, oh, like proximity to my job or like the grocery stores, but you're not thinking about like the crime area, or is it a heavy construction area, or like all of the other things that could affect that. So that's actually been surprising to me in the sense that I thought it would be like not as many nuances as it is, that having a realtor and someone to guide you through the process is like you need to do. You can't like do it without that.
I want to come back to the realtor piece, because you've found someone that you're working with now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to come back to that, because, the job of a real estate agent can be many, many different layers. One certainly is what you described, which is helping you asking the questions that you didn't know to ask, right? Like helping to shed light on what might be blind spots for you. But then there's this whole other piece. And I want to talk about it from your own perspective, and then maybe we'll see, what your agents has done so far to help. Buying a home, often arrives with a lot of emotions, your excitement, you have uncertainty, maybe a little stress. Can you share a moment from your own journey where you felt emotionally overwhelmed, or, and really, really importantly, how you've managed your emotions so far?
Well, one, I'm still learning to manage them.
Okay.
But I think in the very beginning of, like, kind of going through, like, the first home buying process of, like, okay, like, all the things that you need to have in place and, like, how you kinda wanna minimize debt and you wanna do all of these things, like, that was very, very, very overwhelming for me, just going through the process to get a pre-approval and, like, knowing which ranges and, like, the beginning stages for me were extremely overwhelming because I have rented my whole life, and I always thought that the home buying process was something that I wouldn't do on my own. I thought it would be, like, married and, like, with kids and doing it as a family, so recalibrating what I thought it would look like to trying to figure out all of that on my own, like, was overwhelming in itself.
And I want to get a little further in because what happens, right, is that we have all of these great tools, at the office and at home to manage our emotions. And then we get into the home buying process and it's like everything we learned that works for us, we throw out the window. So that's what I want to start with by saying, I know I had the opportunity to go onto your podcast and we'll talk more about that, but you're somebody who's very open with your faith and it's clear that faith plays a huge role in your life. How has your faith shaped your approach to home buying, or have you left your faith at the door?
So, for sure, faith is a huge part for me, and I think that my faith is the only reason why I'm trying this process again, because I I think had for a while had started to believe that, like, it wasn't possible by myself because, I mean, I don't really see, like, it's not really advertised, that single people are, like, buying their own homes, and it felt a lot of out of reach for me, so I just kinda gave up on it. So I feel like my faith is really what's pushing me to not give up on it and try again because, like, God can do anything, and one of my favorite scriptures is Ephesians 3:20 that says, "Now unto him that is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we could ever ask or think, according to the power that works in us." So I think that is the only reason why I'm considering the stressful process again.
Then to get a little practical for a minute, you have a background in human resources and strategic development, that maybe balances the emotional aspect. Has the practical aspect, maybe thinking, oh, the long-term investment potential and all that, has that helped or has that hurt the way you've gone about your home buying process? Because I could see it going either way for a lot. And I've seen it go either way for people. Sometimes they think too much and that the thinking part absolutely over dominates the part that's this little scared person inside who just wants a home to make them happy.
Yeah, I think for me, it can go both ways depending on the day. But I would say for me, mostly it is, I think, too much. And so I think about the worst case scenarios versus leading into the possibilities of the amazing things that could happen. So I definitely think sometimes I wish it was a switch that I could just turn off because I'm always solving problems. I'm always looking at things from different angles that sometimes it can be challenging to just be practical and focus on, like, what's in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good time to call out what happens to lots of home buyers, and it sounds like it might have happened a time or two with you, which is kind of getting paralyzed, getting stuck. I want to drill down a little bit more. In a recent episode of your own Rooted in Radiant podcast, we discussed the importance of overcoming fears and getting out of your own way. Whereas buying a home can really be paralyzing. So many decisions to make. If I heard you right, you're like, this is kind of round two of looking for a home. Where have you felt stuck in your home buying journey? Or where
I
do
think
maybe you feel stuck now? A little
Yeah.
bit.
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is, like, the feeling of compromising because right now, like, just knowing, like, what I can afford on my own is not what I thought just based on the market here, and so a lot of the places that I'm looking at are further out than I expected it to be, and just figuring out, like, is it worth it to, have a nicer size home, but it takes me 45 minutes to get into the city or an hour to get into the city. So I feel like compromising and figuring out, is a long-term investment worth it if I'm going to compromise in the areas of being closer to things than I originally thought.
Okay. I want to jump in here with a question and
Okay.
see if you're open to it. You're talking about compromises, and that's one way to frame it. You've got this long list, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to not do this and this and this. What if if you flipped it on its head and said, what are the things that are absolutely most important to me? And the idea, not that you have to see them in a certain way that you've already imagined, but like, oh, you know what? I'm getting that thing. I'm getting that thing, not in exactly the way that I thought I was going to get it, but in a way that feels good. A lot of people, and I just to give you perspective, a lot of people have gotten on this podcast and said, I thought I wanted this many thousand square feet in my house, but then I realized that I almost I got the house that was that big and it was too big. And sometimes, I guess the question I have for you is, what are the 2 or 3 things that are absolutely most important to you? It sounds like being close, is proximity to the city most important, or is it something else?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Is it close? Is it closeness to a community? That's something that a lot of people, that it's really important, and that if they can just find a house in the neighborhood, that's going to put them closer to your community. That might be the most important thing. So instead of worrying about, I have this laundry list, maybe it's the 2 or 3 things that are absolutely essential, that I cannot bend on those 3 things, but knowing they might look different than what you expect.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think one of the things that I've learned throughout this process is that proximity actually matters to me, because I feel like I moved to Florida a couple years ago. I don't really have family here, and so the family that I've built while I'm here, my fear is that I'm going to isolate if I'm too far away, and I already struggle now to get time to see them. So that, I would say, definitely is a huge thing for me. Having a yard to entertain is super important to me. I want like a really open concept in the kitchen. Those are like, I would say, the top 3 important things to me.
Okay, understood. And before we got on, I think you were talking about how you're ready to not be living in an apartment. That sounds like it's also a priority, but I don't know. Maybe the perfect place has a big terrace, and it's actually, it could be an apartment. I don't know. You haven't, the backyard sounds important. Okay. Proximity to the friends that you have. Okay. And the open concept. Tell me about the open concept. Why is that important to you?
Because I have always, I don't know why, but this has just happened in the last couple of years, but we have a huge Friendsgiving, usually around Thanksgiving or the holidays, because I don't always get to go home. And so having an open concept is, like, I picture me and my friends in the kitchen cooking and like baking together, and having the space to do that where we don't feel like we're on top of each other, and we can create new memories, because I host girls' nights. And so it's really to have the space to be able to do things with my friends and the people that I have over, and family.
It's beautiful. I think if you have a rough day in your home journey, I think one of the things that might lift you up is saying, I'm doing this not just for myself, because of all the community that I want to build in my home. And I would also make sure that you share these kinds of things with your agent, with your real estate agent. Have you done that? Because sometimes the real estate agent, their job is to give you the list of the 50 practical things. And then behind that, which is great, they need to manage the process. But have you shared some of that with them?
I haven't. I mean, I think one of the things that I shared, none of the context behind it besides like wanting to have a yard, because some of the spaces here give me very like New York neighborhood side, where like we're on top of each other. So I have said that to like let them know that I want space, because I don't want to be like I'm walking out touching my neighbor's door because we're so close.
Yeah. Well, I think the more you share the vision that you have for the home, the more creativity your real estate agent can bring to the table. Hey, I don't know if it's a woman or a guy, but this is how I want to use my home. This is how I envision being in my backyard. This is how I envision being in my kitchen. And I'm not trying to change, have you change your real estate agent at all. But if you don't, do you feel comfortable sharing that stuff with your real estate agent?
I do. I don't think I fully understood how important it was, because to me, it's just kind of like a afterthought.
Hmm.
But since our conversation, when you came on my podcast, I think about this whole process very, very differently,
Yeah.
because it is very much an emotional thing. And I am learning that it's extremely important, but I didn't even think about it that way. I just thought of that as like something personal for me to like vision how I want to use the space, but not necessarily something that would benefit her to know.
Well, I would I would say to you that sharing with your if feeling comfortable to share this with your real estate agent is maybe the most important. Sure, if you have friends and family, that sharing this vision of home might be a little scary to share with some people, because maybe maybe somebody's going to quote unquote laugh at you for saying that you want to have what you want to host or the kinds of things you want to create at home. And people are like, well, who is this person who wants to do all these things? You could get really in your own head about that. But definitely sharing with the real estate agent and getting personal, they know that there's this emotional landscape underneath all the practical stuff, but they can't read your mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're navigating the world of real estate. You're balancing faith and fitness, maybe entrepreneurship. How do you juggle these various parts of your life in the middle, and maybe you're also looking for a relationship, all these things. How do you juggle all these things while you're making a big decision like buying a home?
Yeah. I use my calendar. I have a paper calendar and I use my phone calendar, and I pretty much plan out my weeks. And I try to be very intentional about time blocks of I'm going to spend this amount of time this day, responding to questions or looking at the houses that she sent over, because I want to prioritize it. And I am learning that life does not slow down, it only gets busier. And so I'm learning to just be intentional with my time and time block, because I'm balancing all of the things that you mentioned and also trying to sleep somewhere in the middle of all of that as well.
All right. I have a couple of questions for you about your search, because I know you haven't found the right place yet. Have you seen a place like your realtor sends you something, you're like, this looks really cool. And then it's gone, like before you can respond or before you can even go and see it. Has that happened to
Yes.
you yet?
Yes.
Notice I said yet, because it's definitely going to happen at some point. And how did you feel when that happened?
Surprisingly, I was really emotional about it. I don't know why this process is so emotional, but it was just kind of like, oh, we have to start over again, because finding a house that had majority of the things that I wanted or the things that mattered the most, and then to literally go back to the drawing board because it was literally the only one out of that batch that I liked. I'm like, oh, we're doing this again. I don't know how many more times I can do this.
If I'm hearing you right, if I'm hearing what you're saying, maybe you didn't realize this process was going to be as emotional as it is in the whole thing. You're like, oh, I'm just going to check a few boxes, and that's going to be that. And
Yeah.
that's not proven to be the case, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. Because I mean, when I originally had the conversation with my mom, she made it and I don't think and maybe for her back then, it was easier because she was in the military and, they used their military loan and it was a pretty smooth process. But it was just kind of like, yeah, you're gonna go to your first home buyers course and they're gonna tell you all the things, and then you're gonna get a realtor and you're gonna find a house, and, they're gonna do this and that. And I'm like, okay, but like none of that has been the case here in Florida. I started the process originally when I lived in North Carolina, and then ended up getting pretty far in the process, and then end up halting because I decided to move to North Carolina when COVID happened. Everything shifted and I kind of wanted to make a transition, which is why I stopped. And then I got to Florida and looked at the market, and I was just like, okay, I want to rent for a year or two get a lay of the land, figure out where I want to be, what I want to be close to, what do I like, the parts of town, those kind of things. And then the market, they were like, oh yeah, the market's going to drop. It's going to be great. And then it has not dropped. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm 4 years in now.
Okay.
And I just have to have faith that, restarting this process is going to be for the better and that things are going to work out. So.
Got it. Now I want to shock the system a little bit here, and then I want to answer some questions that you might have. Okay.
Okay.
You have a list of, say, 10 things. Because so far I've heard backyard, open kitchen. You don't want to feel like you're on top of your neighbors, proximity to friends. Let's say you have a couple more things on that list. Have you gone to see any properties in person that maybe checked half the list, or maybe checked 6 out of 10 things on the list, rather than being like quote unquote perfect?
I have.
Okay. And when you walked in, were you like, okay, either pleasantly surprised, even though you thought it might be just okay, or have you been in the situation where you've had things that checked all the boxes and then you walked in and felt like this doesn't work at all and I don't know why? Have you had that experience yet?
So kind of a blend of both. So, the one house that I went to was, I would say, like a starter home. So it was just kind of like a basic 3-2 and a half bath. Wasn't too big, wasn't too small, but it's like an hour away from where I live right now. And so it was kind of one of those things where I liked the house, but it was very, very much further out than I would have anticipated. But I also didn't anticipate to like the concept of the house, because it looks like all of the houses, they look exactly the same. They're just different colors. And I didn't realize that would bother me.
Feeling like you were just one of many of the same house. That sort of made you feel like maybe the house wasn't special enough or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I just felt like I was going into a neighborhood of every house was identical, and I just felt like we were like robots walking out and driving up and going home and coming back in. There wasn't really any character, and I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that actually mattered to me, because I didn't think it would, because I'm like, I want to buy a house, and it's nice, but they all look the same, and that kind of actually bothered me, and I didn't expect that.
Okay. So we're spinning around a little bit, which is great. I want to go back to this idea of Friendsgiving. Okay. And like in a minute, something like that, maybe a minute and a half, I'd love for you to paint the picture of what it feels like, of what that really looks like. You can name your friends, you can not name your friends, but say, okay, it's either Wednesday or Thursday, whenever you celebrate that Friendsgiving. What does it look like? What's the table look like? How does it feel to you? And in as much detail. And when you spell all that out, maybe even say, like, what are you grateful and proud of in that moment?
Oh my gosh. So thinking of the Friendsgiving one, there's a lot of wine involved. Just to,
Okay, so your bottles
there's
of wine ready to go.
yes, bottles of wine ready to go. My friend Leah is like the hostess with the mostest, so she'll have brought in an amazing charcuterie board that'll be sitting in the middle of the table. Sherilyn will probably have bought something crazy, because she always makes these very amazing, or I'm gonna try this dish. And then my friend Vera is like, you know what? Last minute, I just picked up something from the store and I got here, and I brought us the dessert. So the table is full of food, and then me and my friend Reese are in the kitchen and we're cooking and we're laughing, we're giggling, also trying to keep the kids out of the kitchen because they want to help. And there's probably more dessert being cooked. My friend coming in late saying, hey, I need to put something in the oven because I woke up late this morning, and passed me a glass of wine because I need that also to cook. And music playing, the football game on for the guys, because I don't think my friends' husbands will come without that on Thanksgiving Day. And kids running around, loud music, but also like not crazy loud music, but more like soft jazz playing in the background, and then just catching up on life and making salad and doing all of the things. And I would say the thing that I would be the most grateful for is just having a space to host them, because I feel like I've always been the friend bringing the dish and them hosting me. And I want to be able to, I would be grateful that I could do that for them.
Yeah, there are two things. Thank you so much for sharing that. The two things I want to point out or that have come to mind is one, why you're doing this is because you're so grateful for your friends and you want to have a space that you can really be the host and share your gratitude with them for their friendship. And I think that's just so beautiful. And I think that's something that will carry you through this process. And the other, and this is just my intuition, and you can take it or leave it, but we'll come back and visit this in a year or whenever, and we'll see where you are. I don't know that the open plan that you think you want is what you actually want. It sounds to me like you have a lot going on, and having different rooms may actually serve you better, so that it's places to connect and come and go and flow from room to room. But it sounds like you have a lot of different groups, and that's great for that kind of thing that might actually serve you better. So keep your eyes open for maybe the non-open plan that just has a big enough, like a nicer size kitchen. And you might be surprised to find something that serves you. Ashley, I'm so grateful for you to be here. And I know that buying a home is one of the biggest financial commitments and all of that. But I really do believe that if you keep your faith and you keep believing this thing is going to show up, and you just keep on painting that picture of how you want to live in this house, I know you're going to find that house. So thanks for sharing with your open heart, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of The Pursuit of Home. I hope today's conversation gave you insight, clarity, and maybe even a new way to think about your own home search. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review the show. It really helps us reach more people on their own journey to home ownership. The Pursuit of Home is proudly produced by Fame, the B2B podcast production agency. Find The Pursuit of Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you want to connect, you can find me anytime on social media or at Magnetic. Until next time, happy home hunting.